Better get in the shade you can see.
Judy. Awesome. I wish you were all here.
Well, thank you all for coming today, for us here to celebrate Jim's life and the effect that he had on all of our lives. We gather here today in this place that he called home, and that now is for us to share. Some people come in and out of our lives quietly, and others leave footprints on our hearts that we feel forever. Jim left some very deep footprints. Each of us is known by our relationships. Jim was no different. He was known as Jim, Jimmy, James L. Burke, Uncle Jim, Big Uncle Jim, Uncle Luke, Downtown Jim. In so many ways, so many relationships with so many different people. He was known by our little guys as Uncle Alligator. He would put on big work gloves and be at the bottom of the hill at Bay Street, and as the kids were rolling down the hill, he would try to catch and eat them as they were giggling and laughing as they came down. He always had big card games with all the little guys where his sack of coins would come out and everyone would play, and they thought at the end that they were the richest people in the world. Deb and I had the honor to live here the last for 4 years with him, and we had a relationship that we came to cherish. We lived life together with him, from Friday night fish fries to his detailed list of going to the grocery store, to nights to go to the casino to get a double thick milkshake, and we eventually came to be that he was my best friend and Deb's boyfriend. And he waited at the end of Friday nights to get one of Deb's hugs and a kiss on the head. And then he would tell us to leave. There are so many stories that we all have with how he affected us and in our lives. And so at this time we ask that whoever would like to step forward can and share stories about how Jim affected you.
With all my heart that Jim was looking down at us like he did. He loved it when people came to his St. Lucia, and he always used to tell his sisters that we hovered over him too much, and especially at the end when he got very sick and you just felt everything you could do to make his life more comfortable and easier. And up until the last time I saw him in the hospice room, he kept trying to take a drink out of his cup and he couldn't get the straw to his mouth. And he was practically comatose. He'd hardly talked at all. And I kept trying to hold the cup and I was trying to put the straw in his mouth. And all of a sudden, as clear as could be, he said, "Do you know what the word hovering means?" Just as clear as can be. So, Jim, we enjoyed every minute of hovering over you, and I believe to this day that you're up there right now, hovering over us, and you're smiling. We love you, Jim.
Here, take a scoop.
Oh.
going to share is going to change the mood.
Mm-hmm.
Fran made chocolate chip cookies for this weekend because we're trying to remember Jim and all of his favorites. One of my earliest memories, Jim's 9 years older, so I don't recall much of him living in the house with me, but the house on 8th Street had a back staircase accessed from Jim's bedroom, and it went directly into the kitchen. And I was going down those steps to the kitchen as my big brother was coming up. He had a stack of chocolate chip cookies about this high. And I looked at him, and he didn't say a word. He nodded his head and walked right up past me to his bedroom. That was the spirit of Jim, and he always did things in a big way, but he had the biggest heart. He watched out for our parents, Gummy and Grumpy, in a way I can't begin to understand. The financial support he gave them, the emotional support to live with them, put his life on hold and live with them in 2 different cities. That's the size of his heart, and we just have to look around St. Lucia to remember how lucky we are to have been a part of his heart. This is the Jimmy that I knew and loved. He had crossed eyes, and he stuttered, and his early years were tough. But he grew into that wonderful man who wanted to take care of all of us. When he was driving,
Can't hear you?
oh, when he was driving a semi, he'd be out west, and when he'd go to the east, Milwaukee, where we live, was right in the middle. So he would stop, and I would do his laundry. And when I got it all dried, he'd have jeans, of course his underwear and socks, and a flannel shirt. And he had one outfit for each day. And he took me, we went grocery shopping one day, and he taught me how to buy a good steak. And one of our favorite stories was his color TV wouldn't work. And Jim could barely turn on a light switch. So it was months when he didn't have color TV until he discovered one day when he decided to clean that it was unplugged. He had lots of names, but to me he was Jimmy. For one of my birthdays, he said I got a package from him, and I thought, well, we don't exchange gifts. And I don't know if any of you heard of the book Eat, Pray, Love. It was a pretty good book, terrible movie, but he knew it would be something that would interest me. And the card said, I eat too much, I don't pray enough, but I do love you. He was generous, he was loving, he was so intelligent, and he took care of our mom and dad just amazingly. And our mother worshiped him. When they lived in Lansing in the condo, he had a bedroom down in the basement. And my mom was kind of a simple person in some ways. And she told me one day there was an egress window. And she wasn't sure what that meant. But my dad explained that if there ever was a fire, that's how he would get out of the basement. So she had a stool right under that window. And I was down there one day vacuuming or something, and I moved the stool. And you didn't see Gami cross very often, but I got told in no uncertain terms that stool was to stay right there. So he was an influence on all our lives in the very best way. And I miss him dearly every day.
unlike my lovely wife, is going to be humorous. I've had a lot of opportunities to be on casino plays with him. From Black River Falls, being hauled, both of us, into the back room to be grilled by the powers to be for that casino, to going over to Minnesota and watching him order several times a day the triple scoops of the double fudge chocolate ice cream cone because they were free. And then for 2 years, the Kiwis, Mary and I and Jim had a play up in Hayward, Wisconsin. And these are stories that only I was able to experience at the back room. The 5 of us always had a 2-hour play, morning and night, once a month. And our pecking order sitting at the machines is Ron was on the far left, next to him was Carol, Mary was in the middle, then me. That put Jim on the end. And we always had to get to those machines early to get them. And Jim started telling stories and stories. And many of these stories I cannot share with you today. But let me just say they were quite humorous. And we had a good time all the time with Jim. So Jim, rest in peace. Enjoy your place living here forever.
Judy, do you want to say anything?
Sure, I think so.
Okay. All right.
Will you be able to hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Ron? I'll put it right here.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, this is not a sentimental story because if I were to try that, I wouldn't get very far through it. So, and I don't know if any of you have heard this, but early on in Jim's professional gambling career, after he came home to Bay Street in 1979 and told Mom and Dad I happened to be there visiting, and he informed them that he had quit his truck driving job and he was going to become a professional gambler. It's a good thing that Gami was sitting down when he told her that, and she never got over it. But sometime after that, kind of getting going there, and he was doing pretty well, as we all know. Jim loved to play blackjack, and with his mind, he had fantastic memory for the cards. And at that time, the casinos only used one deck, and the story is he is responsible for changing that because he would start betting low, and about 2/3 of the way through the deck, he knew every card that was left unseen, and he bet accordingly, and he won a lot of money. And it didn't take them simple people long to figure out what they had there with Jim. And so after a few days of this in a hotel where he had a comped room and free food and anything he wanted, and the security guy said, "Sir, I need you to pack your bags now." And Jim said, "Well, okay." And so the guy just stood there, and he said, "Now." And Jim packed his bags. The guy escorted Jim back downstairs and into a vehicle, drove him to the Greyhound bus station, and said, "Where do you want to go?" And Jim was taken off guard. He didn't know where to go, so he said Washington, D.C. So they bought him a bus ticket, put him on the bus, and stood there until the bus left.
Wow.
To make sure that he was going.
Wow.
All of his people in Atlantic City are going to know about you. So anyway, a short time after that, we get a call. Ray and me. We lived in a suburb of DC at that time, and he said, "Jude, I need help." And I said, "Well, yeah, what's wrong?" And he told me I've been kicked out of Atlantic City, and I'm on a bus going to DC. He said, "Do you think that Ray would be able to come down to the bus station in DC and pick me up? Because I have $3,000 in my sock." This is a true story. So, of course, in most big cities, bus stations are not in the premier parts of the city. So, this was about midnight that his bus arrived.
Wow.
So, he got in the car. He'd never been to the bus station. Wasn't sure where he was going, and of course, this was long before cell phones or anything like that. But he got Jim and picked him up and brought him back to our house, and he's a few days until he could figure out what he wanted to do next. And I don't really remember that story has stuck with me for, that must have been in maybe 1980, something like that. So long time ago. But we were fascinated by him and his stories,
Yeah.
as all of us are.
Yeah. Very cool. How about Dan, Dave? You guys want to say anything?
Well, I was just going to say it must be later than 1980, because if this was after his Schneider truck incident or career,
Yes.
I distinctly recall sitting in our driveway in Menominee in the cab of his truck. And so I would have had to have been, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years old, which would put it around 83, 84. But, you know, with Uncle Jim, he was just always so caring and gave everything. And that's what I remember, you know, his cottage at Fishery Point, where we would go to and play those card games. And he started everyone with a pile of coins. And Mike is right. We would leave that night feeling as rich as kings, because he made sure no one lost. So everyone just amassed a huge pile of coins, and it probably didn't amount to much money, but the sheer number of coins made you feel like you were a winner. You know, just love that.
Bobby's gonna go.
Okay. Bobby's gonna go.
The one name that Mike didn't mention was cousin. And I'm proud to be Jim's cousin, as Mike is, and a number of us are. And we are thrilled to be here today. We appreciate that Mary and Carol and Fran and Judy would think to invite us and our families here to be here today to celebrate Jim's life. So thank you very much for doing that. And Jim came in and out of our lives a lot. And my first memory is Jim coming to Detroit. We lived in Royal Oak, and staying at our home, taking this car that had a hole in the floor and wouldn't go in reverse down to Tiger games, down to Briggs Stadium in Detroit. We met up with him in Las Vegas, and he showed us around various other places when we were saying goodbye to my stepmother. May she rest in peace. Jim we were doing it in Escanaba illegally. Mary, you taught us that we weren't supposed to do it at public beaches, and Jim was a little uncomfortable with it. He, I think, sensed that we shouldn't be doing this, but we did, and he came and he shed a tear he may have been the only person besides Molly to shed a tear for our stepmother. My last memory of Jim is Jim was not wanting to see visitors at the end, and he was nice enough to let me come in on a Friday, and we had the fish fry after that, but I had a couple of hours with him while he was still here, and it just reminded me of why I love Jim so much. It was such an interesting 2 hours. He knew so much about so many topics. He was so interesting. He had such a big heart. And, you know, as I was thinking about what I was going to say today, why are we surprised he has a big heart? He is the son of Lucia and Frank. And they were the two best people that I've ever seen in my life for celebrating family. And all of you kind of epitomize that, but Jim epitomized that. We might not have guessed that this would be the piece of it, but he learned so much from them about the importance of family. I've learned so much from them and Jim about the importance of family. I'm forever grateful. One quick story, kind of a personal story for Mike and I. In the summer of 1919, a 6-month-old orphan came up to Escanaba, and fortunately, the priest who brought him up stopped by the Burke household. And Nan and Gramps had lost 2 children the year before. They were nice, so they saw my dad. Rumor is he smiled at her, none of us know that. And they ended up adopting my dad. And because of this, we're all here today.
Yeah.
So we are as grateful for Jim and grateful to the Burkes, and we're proud to be Burkes. Thanks. Jim, may you rest in peace.
I forgot to mention how I find it very appropriate that Jim's ashes are in a beach bucket with a beach shovel. It's so fitting.
It's actually the sand, right? The sand is covering the ashes in the hole.
You probably didn't see that part.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sand going on top of
Sand
it.
in the bucket covering the ashes that are buried in
I
the hole.
thought you were scooping his ashes.
I did too.
Just very quickly, I don't know, we talked about what we called Uncle Jim, and to me he was always Big Uncle Jim. I don't know why we started calling him Big Uncle Jim. We didn't call it Big Uncle RJ for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure it was because Big Uncle Jim was always larger than life. Everything he did, he drove a semi-truck, he was a gambler, he made salads this big around. Everything about him was unique and big. And Mike's grandkids have started calling me Little Uncle Jim. And I'm proud to always be Little Uncle Jim. So, love ya.
Anybody else?
I can't top that.
Don't ever speak after Mom.
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Okay. Ray and I have a wonderful group of friends through our church, and we get together 2 or 3 mornings a week at Bojangles, of all places. And so this morning they were saying, what are you doing this weekend? And so I told them about this today, and I said, would you like to know a little about my brother? And they all said yes. And so I did. I told them, I showed them a picture of the house there, and they were like, whoa, that's beautiful. And I told them how he had an apartment below them in Lansing and another one in Green Bay, and they said, he did that for your mom? And then, let's see, where was it? Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just kind of lost my train of thought. That's happening a little too quickly.
Join the club.
77 is upcoming, and I don't like it. Anyway, I was telling them the story about that I told you a short while ago, and they just looked at me and they said, their comments were, what the God? What a fantastic brother, and all that. And said they never met him, of course,
For sure.
It's well known.
For sure.
I have a quick one. Well, and I kind of want to know if Dan and Dave remember this like me. But so I have a vivid memory, and I'm going to talk to those two because I think it was Dave and Dan, or maybe Tom. I'm not sure. And we were sitting in the cab of the aforementioned semi right in front of Bay Street, and Uncle Jim he was non-traditional, right? And so he didn't have children of his own, so there were no rules. Everything flew with Uncle Jim. And so,
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Should we turn the video cameras on?
so we're in this truck and we're a little horrified at the condition of it, and the bed smelled so bad, and we're just kind of bouncing around in there. And then I don't know whose idea it was that it was a busy corner with kids heading to the park, and we would duck down and blast that horn.
So loud.
And then Gami came out, and she was cross, her word, and she said, "Jim, you can't do this. These are children. You're scaring them." And I think that the guys were away from that, but I was always ear to the ground kind of person, and so I could tell that he was going to get scolded, so I was sticking for that. But so you two both, Dave, were you there too?
Do you remember? Yeah.
I don't know if Christy or Tom was, but I just remember a packed cab, and there's one coming. We're gonna get him. So anyway, Uncle Jim was a very, very special guy. My other story that I will say is, again, the non-traditional. He said whatever was on his mind, and we had met Tom's family. We were in Wisconsin Dells, and I said something, and it must have been, I don't know, world affairs or something that he thought was very unlike me. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, you've been hiding your light under a bushel for all these years." And I looked at him, and my brother Tom said, "I think he just said he thought you were stupid." And Uncle Jim just said, "But she's not." So that was my other story. Yeah, so my husband says that to me regularly. He was there and delights in that story. Thank you, Uncle Jim.
I just thought of something to say. I didn't have anything, but I just thought of something. So today is the movie release. This movie called Oppenheimer. It's a Chris Nolan movie, and I'm a big fan of this director. I go see all of his movies in the theater, and I was asking some friends here and asking, "Hey, does anyone want to go see this movie?" And nobody goes to see movies anymore. They were like, "Okay." And so I didn't find anyone. I'm just going to take Carter. It's an R-rated movie, but I'm going to. And I was thinking about this today. I'm like, why do I love this director? Why do I want to go see all these movies by this guy? And it really is Uncle Jim, because he really got me into. We would talk movies all day long whenever I saw him. I think it was just, he had a lot of free time in his hands a lot. He'd seen every movie. And, it's to this day, like, I know when I'm going to see this movie, I'll be thinking about him, because it's just, ever since he took me to see Blade Runner in 1982 in Escanaba, a movie a 10-year-old probably shouldn't see. It's just something I always had with him. He loved to talk movies and books as well. But for me and him, it was just always. I could spend so much time just talking about the things he'd seen, and he'd have me. I would go home after seeing him for a few days, and I'd have a whole list of things that I needed to go rent or watch.
Right. Yep.
Um,
Our son Jeff's the same way. Yeah.
Dave, your story made me think of the books and how I have some sadness that I've gotten into the genres that Grumpy and Jim enjoy history, war, all the things that put my wife to sleep. Those are the things that I like to read now, and I have some sadness that I never really got to discuss those things with Uncle Jim and Grumpy. But one of the things that I realized recently is that when Jim was, at some point when he was starting to lose his eyesight, we had the idea to get him an Alexa.
Yeah.
And I was the one who bought it. And so when you buy an Alexa, we didn't know this at the time, but it automatically is tied to your own Amazon account. and we couldn't figure out how to undo this. So my dad set up the Alexa, and we just decided, well, we'll keep it on Dan's Amazon account, which meant the book purchases through Amazon Prime or Audible had to come through my account. And the first subscription I got for Uncle Jim included 3 credits per month, 3 books a month. And I figured, well, we'll start with this and see how long it lasts. And it couldn't have been 1 or 2 days later that Uncle Jim messaged me and said, I'm out of credits. And so we added more credits, and I remember having a conversation with my mom that, the extra credits are pretty expensive. And it was like, who cares? It's giving him enjoyment. He can't read anymore. He went through books so fast.
You did.
And why I'm telling this story now is just the other day, I realized that I still have all of those books that were purchased for him on my Audible account. And I scrolled through this list that went on forever of books. And all of them are high interest for me.
Awesome.
So in some ways, I feel like I now get to share in his interests. I don't get to have the conversation with him about these books, but I'll start listening to them and knowing just that he listened to them and understood the story kind of brings some satisfaction or joy.
Awesome.
Hey Dave,
We miss you guys.
Didn't you offer to write Jim's autobiography with his help years ago?
Yeah, we never really got together. I remember.
Yeah. I sure wish you two had gotten to.
All right, you step forward, Mike.
Yes, and I'll keep this short. This is really more about the Frank Burks as much as Jim. And like Bob, I'm honored that you would have us here. As some of you know, I'm a real genealogy buff, which includes the Burks family. And I've done a fair amount if anybody's interested. But anyway, I did want to know who my dad's birth parents were. It was an itch I needed to scratch. And before I quit work, I said, well, this isn't cheap. I'm going to invest some money in this. The clue that sort of solved it had been given to me by my Uncle Frank, Grumpy, 40 years previously, and I remembered the clue and gave it to the genealogist, the professional, and she found the family. The one thing I wanted to say was, yes, we met them, nice people. They're our cousins, but you guys are our family. And always will be. So.
Did they able to see it close up like that?
That's the stone that'll be at the base of the tree.
Anybody else like to speak? So now we have an opportunity as we close our remembering of Jim to really, I think, to look at ourselves as well and think about what are the names that we are known by, what are the relationships that we have, and are we leaving footprints on other sides? and to really think about that, because we as living now are the ones that get to carry on, and to carry on Jim's memory and his legacy, and build memories with all the people that we know and we have as well. And we're broken people, and we need a Savior, and we're weary and heavy laden, and Jesus says to come to Him to get rest. So let us all now rest in the fact that we have an opportunity to look at our lives and make eternal choices, and know that things matter, and that we really just that we have the need to share and to love each other, and to see how that we can leave a legacy that will be as powerful as Jim's. So thank you all for coming today and to remembering Jim, and we love you.
I want to see everybody again.
Okay.
Cute little boy, and then all the names. James L. Burke, Big Uncle Jim, Downtown Jim, Luke, Uncle Luke, my son Jim, James Lucius, James, Jimmy, and Uncle Allie.
Katie, can you hand that in front of us?
Oh, sorry, I only, can you see? All right.
Yeah, thank you for
There you go.
You guys are more than welcome. I don't know.
Stacy did a very nice job.
Cool.
Thank you. Love you.